Solana just had its first 10-figure raise ever for a digital asset treasury company. Ryan Salami, the chairman of said company, has gone ahead and stated that we need a new thesis to get to an over $1 trillion Solana. He's going to be sharing his thesis on how this even is possible in the first place. As someone that was an early stage investor on Solana, held it from the bottoms all the way until now, he's gone ahead and been a big proponent of Solana's success long term. I wanted to share in this video several segments. I did a ton of research in regards to Ryan Salami and his public appearances so far. I've gone ahead and separated into several sections with dates that I will go ahead and disclose so you can be best up to date and do your research on what is becoming right now to be the man of the hour for Solana, the Michael Saylor of Solana potentially. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So Kyle Samani, he's the guy we're talking about on this video. We think about Ethereum, we think about Tom Lee. Tom Lee has $8 billion worth of Ethereum. He has an absolute monumental monstrosity of Ethereum right now. We have Michael Saylor, over $40 billion worth of Bitcoin. And now we have the Multicoin Capital co-founder, Kyle, with over $1.6 billion at the helm as the chairman of what is going to be Forward Industries Incorporated. On Monday, they announced they secured $1.65 billion in cash and stablecoin commitments through a private investment in public equity led by Galaxy Digital, Jump Crypto, and Multicoin Capital to fund a Solana-focused digital asset treasury strategy. This caused the price of Solana to spike. We're having a bit of on-chain turbulence, but at the end of the day, Solana is having a lot of positive price action as a result of this treasury company. For the first time ever, a fund outside of Ethereum and Bitcoin are getting attention, and it's all happening on Solana. Let's go ahead and talk about it because Kyle Samani, upon closing of the pipe, he's going to be the chairman of the board of directors. And let's just talk about how much Solana has raised in the past because maybe there was another company to do it. Well, now, Forward's $1.6 billion Solana reserve would nearly triple the size of the largest existing Solana treasury. That's a big deal. Right now, Upexi holds the largest Solana holdings with 2 million coins. That's about $430 million. It's not even close. It dwarfs. It's $1.6 billion. It's so much more. So why in the world does Kyle have such, why is he so bullish on Solana versus Ethereum? Why doesn't his treasury company just buy Ethereum? Well, he actually is going out and saying that the Sol versus ETH narrative is very big. I wanted to start off and shout out to Thread Guy because I got a lot of the sources for this video from Thread Guy's interview with Kyle. This is why he believes that Ethereum will lose to Solana when it comes to trading. Ethereum right now is number one in stablecoin issuance. This means right now, as we are speaking, there are more stablecoins on Ethereum than there are on Solana. However, here's the big however, in terms of volume, movement, and daily users, it's all happening on Solana. So all of the actual trading happening in crypto, it's happening on Solana. And we know from the meme coin craze, from people using 𝐑𝐞𝐿, people using Drift, Camino, all those DeFi protocols, that this is all happening right now on Solana. Something he also focused on, and he talked about lobbying for this, the Genius Act. The Genius Act was important in letting the world know it's time to push stablecoins on chain. And he says the Genius Act passing, which he didn't know was going to happen, but it ended up happening anyway, it's going to push a lot of money into stablecoins. So the futures in stablecoins, you kind of expected something else probably because right now Solana is predominantly about meme coins. But from the interviews that I saw tackling this issue, what Kyle went ahead and pretty much said was, yeah, right now there's a ton of nonsense on chain. But this nonsense has caused over $1 trillion worth of trading volume over the length of their existence. Meme coins don't really make any sense, but they prove that Solana can handle mass amounts of capital trading within it. So right now it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it proves the theory that Solana really can handle all these transactions on chain. Now, keep in mind, this was before this treasury company got announced. It was about a month ago. He's not optimistic on treasuries long term because of the fact that he's only bullish on those that produce revenue for the chain and help it grow. Now, this is interesting because if we think about Tom Lee and what he's doing with Ethereum, they're pretty much just buying it up and trading it. If we think about what Michael Saylor is doing for Bitcoin, he's not he's not doing anything for the tech. He's just buying more Bitcoin because he thinks that Bitcoin is going to have more value long term. What it feels to me is, one, he wants to be the Michael Saylor of Solana. I mean, it's clear as day that he wants to do that. And the second thing, though, is that he wants to actually help this chain grow alongside their investment, which I think is exactly what they should do. The reason venture capital funds get into the space and help these early stage companies, from what I've gathered, hopefully, they're providing some sort of value to help the company grow. And so if they do the same thing for Solana, that's a huge thing. And that's a separator that they are able to do, and a value add that some of these other treasury companies just aren't doing. Now, this is the one that you probably clicked on for. For Solana to hit $500 billion to $1 trillion, we have to believe in internet capital markets. This is his new thesis on crypto. And I will break down exactly what he said. And this is a very long essay he did, and I broke it down in a couple paragraphs. But he made a thesis here, an evolving thesis on Solana hitting $1 trillion, and it has to do with internet capital markets. But what he said in the Thread Guy interview is that we have to have equity issued on chain. We've got to have the banks doing stuff on chain. B2B, the transactions have to be on chain. Major social networks integrating cryptocurrency, X being one of them. Something I did see, Starlink was mentioned during one of the Kyle interviews. What you need to know about Starlink right now in countries like Ukraine, which we all know what's happening with Ukraine, there is a conflict going on. People need internet. And so maybe in America, people are paying $100 per month for their internet. But in places like Ukraine, they aren't charging nearly as much. Maybe they're charging $10 a month for people to gain access to the internet, a fraction of the price that people pay in the United States of America. Now, all of this is happening primarily through stablecoins. And this is something very interesting. This actually makes a Starlink the biggest transfer of stablecoins probably in history. I mean, no other company in the world is using stablecoins as much as SpaceX is using. And I'll tell you why. The reason is, and this is what from Kyle, it's not from me, I'm just kind of quoting him here, is because of the fact that normally if you're working with these banks in Ukraine, they might be taking 10% off the top. That's a lot when you're only charging $10 per month. And so to make it viable, they're saying, hey, if you have stablecoins, we're going to more than want to deal with you. We don't have to pay these crazy fees. And that is the unique advantage that places like Solana have over other metrics, other currencies, other financial systems out there that have these ludicrous fees. And so that's why he's saying that inevitably everything is going to be moving on chain. Now, he thinks that the Clarity Act will make that path possible for a $1 trillion Solana. He's given it a long horizon now. Before you're expecting me to say that in the next 20 days, Solana is going to hit $400 and that we're all going to $1 trillion and we're all going to be rich, he doesn't have that mindset. Every single interview that I saw, and this is a consensus, I looked at many of these interviews, he said every single time he does not have a short-term price prediction for Solana. He doesn't have a short-term price prediction. He has long time horizons because he knows that over the course of enough time, time is your enemy. We don't know exactly when things are going to happen, but we know they're going to happen. So he's 100% certain things will happen. He just doesn't know when. And that's why time is your worst enemy and why you have to have these longer time horizons to be able to have your thesis play out. Keep in mind, this is the guy that held Solana post FTX crash all the way down to $8 and rode it all the way back up to over $200 per coin. This is a guy that thinks long term, which is hopefully something, fingers crossed, that we would have for a guy that's holding billions of dollars worth of Solana. Now, he believes the general acceptance will increase as the Clarity Act goes ahead and passes. As we have that timeline horizon, cryptocurrency will be more widely accepted. And the future of trading is going to happen on Solana. And he thinks as we get to that point, Sol will shatter all-time highs. And also, he's never sold Solana. So things that we took from the Thread Guy interview. Other things, in terms of ETF news, this was about 4 weeks ago. So I guess the real time horizon would be probably like 4 to 5 weeks if we're trying to be accurate on the timeline. But he thinks that a staking ETF is a big deal. He thinks staking ETFs are a bigger deal than regular ETFs because this is going to allow people to actually use their Solana for something. So if you just hold in a regular ETF, you're getting all these fees. It's annoying. They don't want to do it. But staking ETFs, we get yield, and it's a lot easier to do. Now, he thinks people buy Ethereum and Solana for different reasons. If people want to go long DeFi, they're doing it on Sol. If they like a higher market cap, they're doing it on ETH. For people who are underwriting Solana, long term, they don't care about the yield, so they won't be a part of these staking ETFs. And I think that's 100% correct. I think a lot of people are underestimating the amount of innovation that's happening right now on Solana. Simply but, he's got a lot of conviction. A hell of a lot of conviction. He thinks over long-term horizons, and this is what I was talking about earlier. He's got about 100% probability, so guaranteed, the market has not priced in iOS and Android crypto integrations. He thinks over 5 billion people will have stablecoins over the course of the next couple of years as a result of the Genius Act. He thinks the Genius Act is good for America to push forward stablecoins, and he also believes it's going to make it easier to sell other major currencies for the USD. So it's a no-brainer. Now, in terms of the number go up reason, he believes that the chain with the most stables will eventually buy whatever the chain has. So if all the stables are on Solana, eventually you're going to interact with Solana in some way and buy some Solana. And that's going to be the number go up thesis. Now, in terms of the Clarity Act, and this came from an August 2025 interview with Kyle, so pretty recent, it provides clarity on what is and what isn't a security. There's still question on what is and what isn't, and crypto has demonstrated a lot of great areas. Once it gets passed, they're going to have the clarity they need, and all the world's tech companies and institutions are waiting for this to go into the crypto space. They want that clarity to be able to go into the crypto space. That is a very sensible thing. Now, back in early 2018, this is some history that I learned. Solana was called Loom Protocol. His original thesis for Solana, and this is going to be important for you because people have evolving thesis. Your thesis for why you're bullish on a crypto asset changes over time. I've made many videos on my time in regards to specific cryptocurrencies, and over the years, a lot of these theses have changed. So seeing why you were originally bullish on an asset will help you kind of understand the evolution as to how we got to where we are today. Now, his original thesis on Solana was the fact that it was the decentralized NASDAQ. That's it, the decentralized stock market. Now, he believes 8 years later, the core decisions were 100% correct. But he believes that investing Solana at less than 100 billion is very different from investing into Solana at over $100 billion. So let's go ahead and go over his investment thesis for an over $100 billion Solana. And that's this very long paper that I have successfully condensed into a lot shorter. Trust me, this was like much longer. Now, this is the Solana thesis, his updated thesis. Internet capital markets. He published this in January 2025, but continues to reference it in pretty much all of his interviews, so still up to date. Now, here's the case. Solana is the leading chain to power internet capital markets. He's going to go ahead and argue that that technology can outperform major traditional finance players, including the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, CME, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and MS on the financial market side, and Visa and MasterCard on the payment side. So pretty much everywhere, he believes they could reduce fees for financial services to end users by 90 to 99%. And he thinks we can go ahead and capture more aggregate market cap than TradFi incumbents. While TradFi players like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ offer one narrow slice of value, Solana already powers a superset of the features of these systems via the unique DeFi protocols that have been in production on Solana for years. Solana not only expands the TAM, total addressable market, for trading by increasing access and performance, it also captures value from more layers of the finance stack. This is a very interesting prediction that he made here that I thought was very interesting. The market cap of payments companies around the world is around $1.4 trillion. Solana aims to collapse that by 90%. I mean, he's attacking Visa right here. The only cost that Solana itself imposes on users is gas, which is roughly 1/10 of a penny per transaction. Even if the Solana network grows to sustain 50,000 transactions per second, that's only $1.5 billion in cost to users. For context, Visa sustains a few thousand transactions per second, so Visa can't even compare. He's throwing shots at Visa right here. This is massive shots right here. Virtually all assets will trade on inherently global and permissionless systems like Solana eventually. It doesn't mean people are going to stop trading on the stock market, but rather an increasing percentage of that volume is going to take place on chain instead of on these traditional venues. I actually have been tracking what the stock market has been doing over the past couple of years. They've been saying they're going to be going to 24-hour trading. And a lot of that, I believe, is because crypto right now trades on 24-hour trading. And it's been able to go ahead and supersede its competition as a direct result of this. And so more than likely, these traditional finance venues are going to be using these blockchains like Solana to do on-chain transactions so that they can do the 24-hour trading they need to do that much faster and that much cheaper. He doesn't think people are going to go ahead and just magically leave the NASDAQ, and that's part of his evolution of his thesis. He doesn't think like tomorrow everybody's just going to go ahead and leave the NASDAQ for Solana. Instead, he thinks Solana's technology can complement stuff like NASDAQ. And that makes sense because blockchains are inherently global, they're permissionless 24/7, far easier for retail traders to access, and a lot easier for developers to integrate than TradFi. Very, very interesting. Now, so far, everything in the post that talked about Solana was about a matching engine, but the DeFi protocols that Solana has are absolutely huge for him. And in fact, the ones that he talks about a lot are Drift and Camino that he says complement each other a lot. Very interesting. So here's stuff the Solana ecosystem can offer. Every financial service imaginable to everyone around the world with more transparency and audibility that meaningfully reduces the risk of contagion. Very interesting. With higher capital efficiency than TradFi. So he just thinks all across the board, Solana is better. Today, the largest DeFi primitives on Solana are spot trading, borrow and lending, trading perpetual features. And that corresponds to the New York Stock Exchange, the big banks, and of course, CME. And those are just for the USA. Solana competes for everything. So this is part of his overarching thesis. It's everything that Solana is trying to achieve. It's not just going to be one sector. In quarter 4 of 2024, the Solana network earned over $800 million in revenue, which does not include Solana inflation, which is roughly $3.2 billion on an annualized basis. This is up from $0 a year before. This is up from nothing. And this is despite the fact that there are almost no TradFi assets issued on Solana and the relative immaturity of the major DeFi protocols in Solana. They're all very early on still, maybe a couple years old at max. Now, the total addressable market for Solana is growing across 3 dimensions: DeFi protocols, adding new features, and creating more MEV opportunities. So MEV is the thing he's going to talk about a lot here. It's max extractable value. So opportunities to go ahead and extract as much value as possible. These are opportunities he's going to talk about a lot. Now, entrepreneurs are building novel financial markets natively on chain for compute, telecom, energy markets, etc. And more assets are being issued on chain, from meme coins to US equities. It grows the TAM, it strengthens the blockchain, and for example, the more assets that are issued, the more collateral is available. Something he also did say in one of his interviews that I didn't list here was the fact that Camino has about $6 billion worth of collateral and only about $1 billion issued. That's pretty damn safe if you got to ask me. Now, Solana is compounding at an increasingly faster rate, as you can see. You know, they had $0 and now they have $800 million in a single quarter. That is a big, big, big deal. Now, the last thing he said in terms of his internet capital markets thesis, the Solana ecosystem is pushing forward on all fronts to fulfill the vision of internet capital markets. Solana is simultaneously improving execution for makers via conditional liquidity and takers via multiple concurrent leaders. Furthermore, the Solana ecosystem is growing its total addressable market by supporting a broader array of TradFi and crypto native assets, and vertically by capturing some of these MEV opportunities from each of the many financial services built on top of Solana. There's an incredible opportunity to create a global and permissionless financial system that allows people with information advantages to capture alpha across every asset class while crossing the tightest spreads and with the lowest fees, with globally sourced levers that is transparent and audible in real time, with maximum capital efficiency via atomic composability across positions and protocols. And that is his vision for a $1 trillion Solana. That's the vision for Solana. That's his big thesis. This right here that's $1 trillion right there. $1 trillion in market cap. Exactly what he's pitching right here from internet capital markets evolving from a decentralized NASDAQ. Now, the last thing I wanted to share, this was an interview from about 2 months ago, talking about his comparison with Solana and some of these other chains. Now, today, Solana is the only first-class citizen with Ethereum. This means that they've got global acceptance. It seemed impossible. Everybody thought Ethereum was going to be the only one to make it, but ETH messed up. Things got expensive, and people went to Solana. Now, there are other chains that he went ahead and directly quoted Sui that say they're cheap and fast, but does it really matter? Going from $50 per transaction to about a tenth of a penny, that's a big difference. But anything more is marginal. He, of course, wants Solana to get faster, but the gas cost, he doesn't really care about it. The difference is 100% marginal. Now, in terms of how high he sees Solana going, this is one of those questions he got asked. He's got no near-term price predictions. Now, he does say stuff for the Sol ecosystem. So the Solana ecosystem, by the end of this year, by the end of 2025, the system will be more performance. It's going to be permissioned and regulated entities that are going to be coming here on Solana versus Ethereum. They're going to be shifting. And he directly quoted Kraken on when he talked about this. In terms of major deep-in pins, they're going to have their breakout years on Solana. And the market structure is going to go ahead and evolve. Sniping, sandwiches, these are going to be going away over time. They're going to have solutions that are going to be coming out for this kind of stuff. And so this is the grand overarching thesis of the man that went ahead and successfully has created a world where Solana really can compete against Ethereum. Is he right? Is Tom Lee right? Is Michael Saylor right? We don't know, but this is the thesis behind the man with the largest digital asset treasury company for Solana for a potentially $1 trillion per coin asset. If you enjoyed the content, subscribe for more videos like this. Stay classy, and that's all.